have many traditions, many native people. This was a place of healing where many tribes actually never lived in this area of Crestone. They would only come for healing and ceremony. And this goes back to Anastasi and even earlier with some off-world people, if you believe in that. But basically, it's a long tradition. And even though we make our home here, many people are called, right, to come to this area for healing and wellness. And so I just want to honor that this morning, doing this impromptu, but I think it's a good place to start. Certainly, all of the things we're doing at Energy Fair are to honor energy with food, with permaculture, with all the things that are with children, all the things healers. We're all trying to work towards that. And I'm very thankful to have this great panel up here. I know we kind of organized this and it kind of flowed together on its own in the very recent past, but I think it's great because we've got a whole variety of folks here and they've got amazing bios. I think I could spend an hour just spending time on their bios, including you, Laura, even though you may not think so. But and so I do want to honor them and do a little bit of explanation, and many people here are certainly helping with the fair behind the scenes as well as on stage. Like we have Asia Dorsey here. Obviously, you've met her through her intro and her work yesterday, right? And Duffy as well, being on the panel with Spore yesterday, right? And Elza, you've been doing a lot of work over in the wellness area, and so has Laura on the music stage, okay? And Annie has been behind scenes helping bless and create positive space here. And Brad, I know you're always working on nature and helping support all of what's going on as well. So I'm just gonna start, and I'd like to just give thanks to the people up here because it's not about me, it's about us, right? Working together, so thank you. And Asia, we've done your bio. We don't need to do it again, you don't want me to? I'm just really glad to have Asia here because what I have learned about Asia and just meeting her at this event is not only how awesome she is, truly, but there are people here who've done a lot of work, like Lisa said, with you in community and felt that your gifts were really helpful to bring us together in wellness. And so I want to honor that for you. I might get emotional here, but seriously, really, because, that's what it's about, right? And I think we're trying to do with this Energy Fair is have the panels, have the talks, and everyone in the 4 years that I've been kind of intimately involved with the stage and stuff on the Energy Fair, all the panelists always say coming off the stage, I learned so much from the other person. And that's part of that community building, right? Is that many of us are so busy, especially in the wellness field and with our families and all the things traveling that we're doing. And some of us even here, we've got a big load on our plate. But we have this opportunity to share with you all what we're doing and how we feel, but we're also sharing together. And I think the panels are great for that. I've always seen that. So thank you, Asia, for joining us. And I'm going to flip to Brad because I kind of did it in a different order, but I figured everybody would sit where they felt so inclined, which is always good. So Brad Cohen is working with Way of Nature and John Milton since 2002. So there's Brad, and he's pointing to him right now. And I do want to add that he started working with John Milton and Way of Nature 20 years ago. Okay, so he has been intimately involved in the events that go on with Way of Nature, which I'm sure he'll talk about today, which is solo retreats, working with nature in a retreat and meditative setting, and I'm sure there's a lot more that he can share about that. So he's a guide for the Sacred Passage awareness trainings that John and he do, and he also designs and organizes guiding. He's worked with wilderness rafting programs, whale encounter expeditions for Way of Nature. He's also doing wilderness meditation solos every year, his own. So he's also working on himself vigilantly. He's also enjoyed a close relationship with nature since growing up in the Ozark Mountains of rural Arkansas, which is awesome. We can date a lot of our things in our life that kind of set us up for the future and our work. And he values the trainings with John Milton. He's brought in invaluable depth for him and breadth to his passive relationship with inner and outer nature. And that's something I definitely want to talk about on the panel today, is inner and outer nature. And I'm glad that you added that to your bio. It's awesome. And the communication of those two. And he said he's happiest. And I found this in everybody's bio pretty much. Like, they're happiest to be able to share this path that they learned with everybody else. Everyone said that on all of their stuff. So yay, everybody up here. And also, Brad has had a background of working with Native peoples and teachers in many different tribes. And he also worked as a park ranger in Grand Canyon, one of my favorite places, sea kayaking, wilderness guide internationally, and with therapy programs, wilderness therapy programs. One really cool thing too is he's been working on the Extreme Ice Survey, a global project that's documenting the retreat of the world's glaciers. So thank you, Brad, for being here. Oh, and look, Annie, you're next. Yay. So Annie Pace, if you don't know her, she's been a longtime resident of Crestone and very entrenched in supporting the community. She is a lineage holder of classical Ashtanga yoga, and she is the most senior practitioner, one of the most in the world. So she's been immersed in yoga sciences for over 43 years, including 30 trips to India, as much as she can. Of course, has been a little limited lately, right? And sitting at the feet of masters. I like that. So she's been in Crestone for 25 years, and if you're not aware, she has her yoga shala, Shakti Sharnam, and it is completely off-grid, in tune with the energy fair, and in town, and it is a straw bale yoga studio and school. And she has recently retired from national and international teaching, but offers community classes and custom courses of study here solely in Crestone. So we appreciate that. And one of her most profound gifts is the ability to distill the essence of the yogic sciences, and her clear, compassionate teaching style benefits all levels of practitioners. And I know that from working with her, that I know a lot of people that I've worked with in the yoga field, including Annie, as you get more evolved, and you can certainly talk on this better than me, it's really about working with people where they're at, right? And supporting them in that process. So thank you for that. And she considers it a blessing and an honor to be entrusted with the passing on of the lineage, and her primary intention is to do so with authenticity. So thank you, Annie. Miss Laura. So welcome to everybody. Laura Enzer was actually born and raised in Crestone. Yay! And she is the owner and herbalist at Mountain Laurel Apothecary. And if you aren't familiar with her store, it's right down across from the Elephant Cloud. And she has been very dedicated to studying herbalism over the past 6 years and has found a deep sense of knowing that this is her path in this lifetime. And I agree. It's her current role as the apothecary owner, with opening up space and cultivating an environment for education for others as well as herself, and she's very committed to that. She considers herself a humble student and has found exponential growth of knowledge since opening the apothecary. And she has a passion for community. There's the community part, right, that everybody's talking about, and feels really great enjoying and having the opportunity to create within the apothecary itself. And I resonate with that because I also had a store when I was about Laura's age, and I learned a lot just interacting with everybody in the community and bringing people together in the community. And we need that to hold space, right, with the plants and everything else as well, right, which is what we're trying to do here. So I appreciate that. She's proud to carry products from many local herbalists. So she is trying to create a place to bring people together in the herbal world, and she loves the way that she's working with everyone. Alongside her herbal practice, she's developed a deep love of studying food and how to eat to support your metabolism, ancestral eating, and debunking the diet culture. And she states that she suffered from feeling undernourished and has witnessed many people around her having that experience as well. And she would like to one day work with clients individually and help them nourish deeply through food, herbs, and self-care practices. So thank you, Laura, for joining us. Okay. And Elza or Elisabetta Kosmiski, she has been practicing integrative health for over 20 years, and she has a wisdom shirt on, so she's right on board here. And she has a background in education and community health systems, and she's an advanced certified body talk practitioner and an instructor for body talk, a licensed somatic therapist. Very cool. I love that. And she also practices and teaches Qigong and therapeutic movements. And she has been working with people, clients, as well as teaching over in the wellness visit. And you have a karate thing going on after the panel, yeah, over at the wellness. So please join Elza over there for that. She's an international speaker. Oh, I skipped something. I don't want to skip anything. She has had advanced training and clinical experience, not only in body talk, but structural integration, classical Chinese medicine, energy medicine, massage therapy, and women's and family care through the childbearing year. She is an international speaker and has a passion for educating the public on body talk, community health systems, Taoist philosophy, and energy medicine. I resonate with that. Personally, she enjoys maintaining a daily Qigong practice and martial arts practice as well with Enshin Karate, and is an avid gardener and master composter. She is also the founder of a digital interactive seasonal living platform called Reasons Mag. Yes? Okay. And branch chief of Enshin Karate in Crestone. And she's the mother of 2 beautiful daughters. So thank you, Elza, for joining us. And yay. Everybody deserves a clap for all those other people, too. Yeah. Yay. Okay, we're almost done. Thanks for the patience. But I really want to, being our first panel, I really want to introduce you people, everybody, to the folks up here. And some of you may know some of them, but maybe not all of them. And Matthew Duffy, who we've already met yesterday as well, because he's been involved in a lot of stuff. And I love your bio, Matthew. It's like really creative. It's like one of the most creative bios. He is an because you're a wordsmith. That's right. Eco-futurist organizer, myco-poet, and a Taurasian team player. Leaning on the background of ecological design and community organizing, he teamed with Decriminalize Denver. And if you heard the talk with Spore, you probably heard some of this yesterday. As a Sporganizer, yeah, very cool. And the Denver Psilocybin Initiative, and that was back, psilocybin, I said it backwards. You heard myself. Yeah, you heard I actually said it backwards. And I know what it is, actually. And that was back in that initiative was back in November 2018, so he was organizing for that. And after the success of that, which was spoke about yesterday, I'm sure he'll share some more today, he went on to co-found SPORE and enroll in the Resilient Leadership program at Naropa, an MA program. To receive education he needed to best serve the emerging psychedelic ecosystem, which I think is very honorable, Duffy. That's great to know that you wanted to add to what you knew to help the movement. He believes solidarity is where sovereignty and interdependence meet. Just think about that for a minute. A moment of silence. That's cool. And dreams of a psychedelic movement committed to restoring relations, collective healing, and beloved community. So that's a great place to lead into our talk. Is there anything else you guys would like to share before we get into some questions? No? Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna lead on some questions, but everybody's got so much to share up here, so I'm sure we're gonna really join in, and we will have time for questions, of course. So my first question is pretty simple, right? But it's not that simple, it's tricky, right? And the tricky question is, how would you personally define wellness, right? And we were having a conversation yesterday evening, right, about how that might look different for different people, obviously, right? But for those of us here working in the wellness field actively in many different ways, how does that present for you? So who would like to take this question on? Oh, come on. Don't rush to volunteer. You want to do it, Elza? Okay. Andy pointed at you. You can point it right now.
Since I got pointed at, I think that wellness gets limited by thinking that it is just the absence of disease, but really wellness is so much more dynamic than that. And I think it starts with the consciousness of our spirit and its ability to actualize itself, our ability to take our innate intelligence, our unique potentials, our unique essence, and bring it into everything that we do in life, whether that be through relationships, through our work in the world, through how we cook, how we mother, how we do our art, the ability to feel safe and the ability to feel like we can express ourselves, and that there is a consistent unfolding of that purpose and potential till maybe we take our last breath, and that it helps us to keep growing with this essential nature that is innate to each one of us. Brad, you look like.
Thank you. Yes, I love that, Elsa. It's very complete, and that feeling of a lot of times the culture is the broader culture. We can get caught in the trap of feeling like we have to respond to things or believe in some media picture that everything's in conflict and antagonism or in a world of opposites. And so in wellness, yeah, I think we can also fall into that definition of, oh, if I'm well, if there's an absence of disease, right? But I love that. Just totally shift the focus and bringing it back to the interconnectivity that we experience on the community level and the group level is the same dynamics that we experience within our own being. And so I work a lot with helping guide both myself and other beings into greater awareness of one's inner nature and the outer nature experience, and then following our 9 perceptual fields and connecting with the outer nature experience and following the sensory experience back into the inner nature. So who is perceiving? Who is this being that's perceiving and connecting with the outer nature experience? And so if the cosmos is all interconnected and all part of the same thing here, expressing mutually, it's amazing because we have these multiple pathways to find wellness. And for me, wellness is really those interconnectivities of the inner nature and the outer nature in connection, so that we don't get tripped up into some feeling of separateness or separation. So for me, the dis-ease comes from an experience of separation. So coming to wellness is coming back to that communion, connection, going into a unity experience with our outer and inner environments, which then, of course, raises our awareness to more of our true nature and our higher self and that higher knowing that we all have and we can all connect with and that we do. But in the busy human life, we get a little dis-eased, out of ease, tripped up by the separation kind of metaphor mentality sometimes. So, yeah, wellness for me is coming back to that interconnectivity.
I just want to amplify you and everything that you shared, and Elsa as well, moving us out of the place of wellness being absence of a disease and dis-ease being disconnection. And I would amplify that wellness is, for me, a state of deep interdependence. And that interdependence can be relational with humans. And as an herbalist, I really center our relationship with the non-human world, whether that be the animals that we consume or the plants that those animals consume. The state of interdependence is the capacity for us to remember that we are all of the things that are around us, that when I consume mullein and mullein works, it's because mullein is holding a memory that my body has forgotten and is reteaching me how to breathe, because me and we are one thing. And so as we are seeking interdependence. As we are seeking wellness, there are a variety of ways to get it, right? Sometimes wellness comes from snuggling with your best friend. Sometimes wellness comes in the form of a tincture. Sometimes wellness happens between the practitioner and the body that's being practiced, that's being worked. And so wellness as a state of being in deep relationship, being in co-dependence and co-regulation as a form of moving towards a deeper truth of self, for me is really at the heart of wellness. Yeah.
I'll go. Well, I'll just start with I resonate with everything that has been spoken so far. I think it feels reassuring to sit with a group of people who feel so similar, right? I will share a moment that I felt well last night when I was dancing in the grass, in the fresh air with beautiful music and friends and children and community. I was like, wow, I feel really well right now. And no, I wasn't at home making a perfect dinner, taking my tinctures, or doing my coffee enema. I was just being. And that to me is like also part of the wellness is just connecting with your spirit and your community, and not just getting stuck in these daily practices, because you can take all the tinctures and you can see all the practitioners, but if you're not connecting with your spirit and leaning into your spirit and first of all trusting yourself, the wellness will not come and be welcomed in. So yeah, everything that's been said and really coming into yourself and your interdependence and bridging the gap between the outer and the inner, and that's where wellness starts.
I'll just briefly add that I experience wellness as a quality of presence. Being well is how you be, you know, being a well, that depth of presence, and a quality and a capacity to be with all the parts of ourselves and our lives and all of our relationships, and integrating, and being spacious. That depth of presence is a spaciousness to me, to radically and holistically include all of these parts of our experience, all of these parts of being. That is being well to me.
Well, thank you, everybody. I want to share a story because working with wellness for a long time, and I always try to be a well of energy. I like you mentioning that, because when I'm working with a patient, I don't always, I try to clear my energy because I don't always know what they're going to need, And that's one thing I like about some of the traditional systems that we learn, and there's many, but as in with traditional Chinese medicine, I really want to feel people's pulses and look at their tongue and see where they are in the moment, And when I see things not reach that wellness in practice with people, it's because we're not being present. Right? It's like, oh, you have back pain, I'll just stick some needles in your back, or that can translate into all different kinds of things. Or these herbs are for this condition, so I'm just going to give them to you. Where those plants have a resonance, and there may be 10 different plants I could give for this one thing, but what's resonating with that person's signature, right? That energy. And so I had a patient a while ago, and he taught me something that I just wanted to share, because we all have so much going on, right? And I try to honor, and I think everybody here, my personal practice so that I can be resonant with the person I'm with, right, as much as I can. But this particular patient I've been working with for a while, and they do well with treatments and we resonate well. But the person talked about an experience that they had that many people were saying, hey, you should go do this thing. And the person didn't even remember the treatment that they got, but the space that they went in, that this person held, was what they needed. And what that was like heavenly realm, like there was this joyous light energy there. And it was really a teaching for me to say, wow, you know, that was enough for that person just to be in that space, to be in a space that reminded them of purity and unity. And that in itself was just a treatment, right? Just like honoring you guys or trying to be present with you and thanking you, you know, trying to be present so that we can see what's needed, right? And we may not be the one to provide what's needed, right? We might be able to communicate with our community and say, hey, can you go see Elza? Or go talk to Duffy, you know, he's got the link there, you know, or go see Annie and do some, or talk to Asia and work in community, whatever. And Brad, didn't mean to let you go way of nature. But that's what this is about, right? And we're building communities. So thank you, because to me, that's wellness as well. And it's always been my intention with my practices. And I feel very fortunate that I've been able to integrate that with people internationally, which sounds crazy. But having been virtual almost 15 years now before the pandemic and that, I found like if you can resonate with the right people, and sometimes the person you're working with can find those people, amazing things can happen even at a distance, right? And definitely in local community, without a doubt. But I'm thankful for that. And we have a variety of people, right? We have people that live here. We've got people that live in Colorado, but they're still at a physical distance. But that's kind of why I brought that up. So, Annie.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. So, yes to everybody has said. And one of the themes here is integration, integrating opposites, integrating all the levels and layers of our own being with the universal consciousness, all of that coming together, that's yoga, right? And as Dr. Kim described, this person had an experience that was maybe beyond anything they had had before, as far as a feeling of light or bliss or connection. And I feel that as healers and as teachers, one of our responsibilities is to allow any human being that crosses our path to have an experience that is beyond their conditioned reality. And whether that is samadhi or bliss or the ultimate or not, but it is our job to create a point of reference. So many people do not have a point of reference. What is good health? What is bliss? What is it to feel totally united? And people are looking in all directions and becoming more fragmented, trying to find something. And often we don't know what it is we're searching for. So, you know, in yoga, yoga means that state of union or unicity. But there's a conundrum of then, well, aren't we all connected? Why would you have to use yoga as a verb to unite anything together? Because we already all are one. And what I've heard other people say too is it's remembering. It's not that we're not connected, it's that we're not having the experience of the connection. So many of us strive towards that in our own lives, and also with our clients and our students and our community, to create a point of reference for that bliss and that connection. And I'm just going to say one more thing. I know that the question was, how would we define wellness or health? I'm going to quote something that did not come from me, but in Ayurvedic medicine, there's something called swastha. And what that is a state of health in a human being. And that state of health is defined as a human being on a daily basis, every single day, experiencing the 4 states. And those 4 states are waking, dream sleeping, deep sleeping, and the 4th state is samadhi, or union, or you could use the word bliss, of experiencing our connection with the divine. And that is how Ayurveda defines the state of health. And how we get that could take many, many, many different forms. But anything that we're all doing that can create those little reference points, those glimpses, sometimes then all it takes is an individual to remember that experience or that glimpse. And guess what? It comes back. And it comes back and back and back and back and back until it becomes one big glimpse.
Anybody else? Feeling well, hopefully. Or getting better, or getting more well. I like the well. Like, I hadn't thought about that. This is really cool. Like, you're a well of energy, right? And, working, I just want to add something because I just thought about it. Or it came through, I should say. Give credit. Working on a project like Energy Fair, and believe me, guys, I'm up here MCing and I got to be on the fly, but I'm not doing the hard labor. There's so many people that put out so much energy to make this happen. And I know there's other events, and many of you have probably contributed, right, to those things. Thank you. But one thing that happens is, that I'm seeing in the course of just being here, and every year I remind myself, oh yeah, right? How is it to hold our energy so we can maintain wellness, right? And we can get it from singing and dancing at the end of the night. And boy, how many times I've seen people working so hard and they get to the end, they're like, yeah, dance, yeah, right? And I was doing a little of that too last night. And like, how do we fill up the well? That's very cool. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. So, and thank you for all your comments. I'm just kind of leading with some questions, but if you guys want to take it somewhere, please do. So the other question I had thought of here is, how do you work with your practices and wellness? How do you work that into your daily plan for yourself? And sometimes I've just found with talking with people on panels, not that I'm trying to plug the International Qigong Association, but I'm doing a talk next weekend with some senior practitioner medical types or whatever. And, it's kind of like we have fun doing that, because we want to talk about what we're doing with each other, right? And I know you guys are all diverse, and some of you didn't meet till today or this weekend or whatever, but, getting jazzed up about what that is for you. And it can be challenges, right? Because there's a lot of challenges. I mean, I look at you guys, and I know you at different levels, but I know a few people, including myself, having physical challenges that have come up, right? And then challenges with your practice, with your teaching, all those kinds of things. So that's the question is, how have you used your practices for yourself to maintain wellness, right? And I think everybody's got such a diverse thing to share here that I'd really interested in what you're going to say. So,
yeah, I can go ahead. For me, I really constantly have to remember what the big homie Jesus once said. He said, "Be in the world, but not of the world. Be in the world, but not of the world." So I'm really, I really want to be in conversations around health and wellness that recognize and reckon with how wellness, health, dis-ease move through the collective soma, and how there's so much in the health and wellness industry that, because it's married to capitalism, it's very individualistic. It's like you have to have your daily practices and and all these things that are important, but often are siloed in how they're packaged. They're not relational, and they don't factor in these social, environmental, cultural measures and means in which the health resources, the access to wellness is disparate. It's not evenly distributed, you know. So moving in a world, in a dominant culture that is unwell, while we're slinging quotes around to this conversation, J. Krishnamurti, I think, has one of the most potent quotes on wellness and the really critical distinction between being well and being well-adjusted. Those are different. And he says that to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society is no measure of health. That's so crucial. We all have coping mechanisms and strategies, and there's no shame around that. Sometimes it's how we just get through, you know, it's like how we get through the relief and create some space to not completely go ballistic or something, you know. But we have to recognize that our coping strategies aren't necessarily healing strategies, or they can actually perpetuate and keep us in spiral of dis-ease and separation. So for me, just really paying attention to where health and energy is moving. And I'm an amateur alchemist, so I relate to life in this way, you know, like where the energies, what concoction is being made. Is this destructive? Does it need to be destructive? Does there need to be some metabolic breakdown process that, you know, are collapsing and are breaking down? And when we're moving through dis-ease, that can be towards wellness. That can be towards that can be a necessary breakdown to move towards wellness. So, you know, various practices, the breath work, but in this collective soma. Also, I want to say martial arts, I feel like, is really important for me, to be in a discipline of working with energies and elements in these different ways to wage peace within and without. And then learning boundaries. I'm a Taurus. I love boundaries. I love figuring out how to create synergistic boundaries, regenerative boundaries, to create abundant wellness, because I know if my relations are well, I'm good. So leave it at that.
I appreciate that you brought up that quote, because I think this idea about adjusting ourselves to fitting into patterns that are inherently going against the grain of our own essential nature, what our changing needs are, can be really devastating. And it's like, I think it was in your bio, the fad diets, or, you know, the one way of doing something, or everyone needs to detox your liver, but what if you're constipated? So anyways, that quote really is something I think about a lot clinically for my clients, but also for myself. And it comes down to me, this idea of, just to be really personal, of how it's about mothering. So it's how am I mothering myself? How am I listening to my needs? What kind of trust do I have to honor that there's different seasons for different behaviors, there's different foods for different ailments, and, you know, just as, you know, with very young children to teenagers, they have these evolutions in their day, in their year, in their month, and, you know, our mind-body experience of being in response to this, what we would say maybe fundamentally maladjusted society we exist into, is consistently having to recalibrate back to the central axis, so recalibrating back to the truth. And the simplest way to mother a child is to make sure that their needs are met. So whether that be psychologically, physically, emotionally, mentally, how are we doing that for ourselves? And then, how are we really being honest with ourselves about the patterns that we choose, or the lies, or the relationships, or the experiences that we cope with and become our coping mechanisms? Like, what patterns are we adhering to? So when we choose to adhere to a pattern that is maladjusted, then we become that resonant field, and then all of a sudden our physiology and our biology has coped enough that it creates a disease state. So knowing how to get back to the central axis of truth, how to mother that, how to nurture it, whether that be through herbs, whether it be through food, time in nature, cooking, playing, laughing, singing, all of those expressions that we talked about as aspects of wellness being this vital living thing of how we interact and engage. I think if we can figure out our baseline and then honor that there could be all kind of ways that it needs to adjust and shift, but that we have to trust ourselves, because there's so much information and so many things coming at us consistently that take us off our center. And anyone who's ever played in the realm of martial arts knows that the moment you go off your center, whether that be to invest your energy into some sort of force or direction, you've created an instability in yourself. And so how do you use your force in the world, your power, by connecting it to your center? How do you stay grounded? How do you stay balanced? And then how do you block or redirect energy or counter it versus getting hit? And I think that I don't know what you said about conflict, but you said something about, being able to wage peace. And I think so much in our society, we don't want to go into conflict, but conflict allows us the potential to wage peace because we can neutralize. And it's like, even with the dojo kid, you're teaching the kids to hit each other. No, we're teaching them not to get hit, or we're teaching them how to redirect it, or we're teaching them how to actually take a hit and deal with not getting thrown off their center. And, I think that I know it's not the path for everyone, but I learned deeply through the art of fighting that if you go into the fight, something's going to happen. Whether win or lose, you're going to gain wisdom about who you are. You're going to gain wisdom about the heart of your expression and where your holes are and what areas you need to fill up to stay in your center. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful way to, whether it be fighting through sparring or it be just dealing with, again, this maladjusted society and social expectations and where we are in our history. How is it hitting us? How are we working with it? And how are we coming back to our fundamental access of truth and then feeding it, nourishing it, and mothering it ultimately?
Right on, guys. That was very philosophical. I might be a little more practical in my response. And Dr. Kim, I just want to thank you because your question has given me a reminder to tend to myself during the day. I'm going to be a little vulnerable. Yeah, I have a 2-year-old, so my daily practices are not my priority in my life at this phase. She's my priority. But I want to give a shout out to my main love in the wellness is herbs. And through my relationship with them, I've discovered that even in my busy days, I can find ways to incorporate them in all ways. I'm having breakfast, I'm having my herbal tea. I'm having lunch, I'm having an herbal infused vinegar on my salad. I'm making dinner, I'm sprinkling powdered elecampane or burdock root in my burger meat. And finding ways where you're just doing the mundane tasks, how to make them healthier and incorporate like this knowledge that you have within yourself in those simple tasks that you're doing that have to be done. We all are taking care of children or businesses or homes and friends and pets, and chickens, yeah. And how do you incorporate your health when you have a to-do list that has 20 things on it, and you're like, okay, I guess no self-care today. But you can incorporate it into that. And I've discovered once you welcome the herbs and the plants and the medicines into your life, you kind of can't get away from them. They'll be sitting on your shelf screaming at you like, hey, you haven't used me in a while. Come on, pick me up. Hello, I'm here. And so the way that I've incorporated my practice into my daily life, which I believe is the question, is just finding the health in the mundane tasks.
She said, I can't pass. She's telling me what to do. Yes. Can we find healing, health, and vibrancy in the mundane so that the mundane becomes not the mundane? And can we find efficiency in that point of reference of grounding and center in ourselves? So, as I said before, if we don't know what that is, it's very hard to recall it. And if we don't have that integrated to some level, it's also challenging to recall that or be creative in a way that we can be in that place very efficiently. So my experience has been that in the beginning, it does take some discipline and some consistent practice on a daily basis to build something in. You know, and yoga teaches that as abhyasa, doing something consistently for a long period of time with pure intention. So for a while, we need to do that, and at some point, it becomes part of us. And then we can so much more efficiently recall that and go to that place, or be able to find that even in adverse conditions and adverse states of body-mind health, to be able to find that with a broken body when we can't walk, because perhaps a very strong reference point has been set.
Thank you, Annie. That's wonderful. Wow.
Stop having so much fun.
Gotta have fun. Oh yes, and gotta have fun. Yeah, the theme of daily practice and how to integrate that and bring that into life. And I think it is an integration. Like, how do we integrate it into the seemingly mundane tasks that, I mean, can't be too mundane if they're what's, providing our sustenance and it's our experience in the moment. And I really think for me, it comes back to that relationship and everything in relationship. And, the yin yang of the universe is always in relationship. In the Chinese system, it's not yin and yang, it's yin yang. So it's always in relationship. There is no out of relationship. Any out of relationship or idea of separation is illusion, right? So if we can just remember that, remember it, put it back together as it is already, and just in our mind put it back together, because it's already all together. We are all together. So really the relationship can be the relationship with our children, our babies, our plants, each other in whatever moment we're in. So finding that integration and that harmony, that balance, that harmonizing of the yin yang as it's flowing in the moment, really is integrating it into your daily life. And daily practice, yes. And for me, it's, for me and my teachers have really given me the great gift of think of it not as much as daily practice as a cultivation. So it's like cultivating your garden. So it's quite joyful to get to have some time to go cultivate. And then as you cultivate the practices or the movements or the meditations or the mindfulness, you're cultivating that garden. It's growing, you know, at a natural pace, not forced, more of an allowing of the integration to happen, allowing the connection to happen. And there is that key of setting the space and the time to show up for a relationship, right? So, got to be awake enough, present enough to be there and be available for the relationship and show up and bring your gifts and your dance moves. And so showing up for the relationship on a daily basis with some regularity. There are excellent little tricks and tools for like in the yogic system and other systems for some longevity with the cultivation so that it really sticks as a habit. As humans, we're very much creatures of habit. Most animals have some habitual patterns that serve us. So why not make that a support for us? And I love spending time with John Milton in The Way of Nature. He's got these great little sayings like, make habit your friend, right? So just recognizing we are habitual beings. So how can I bring that practice in or that cultivation in on a regular basis? Generally, they say neurobiology, about a month of consistent, regular practice is a nice point where it kind of sticks into your habitual patterns. So having that commitment, having that dedication to yourself and dedication to your community and to the love and the connection that we're all looking for, right? So when I am doing my daily practice, and I don't always do my daily practice in my Tai Chi circle or my Qigong spot, or on my meditation cushion every day. Sometimes it's on an airplane flying through a thunderstorm, trying to get back into Denver from teaching in Mexico or wherever it is, and gonna rest in the moment here and drop into some relaxation, while my physical being is thrown all over the place. And so, integrating it into daily cultivation, showing up for a relationship, and really that relationship piece is just so key for me, whether it's on a meditation cushion, in a Tai Chi circle, or home with the kids, or out in the community, or busy traffic, or whatever. We always have that opportunity in the moment to be present, show up for life, show up for ourselves, and this magical expression of this life that is unfolding in every moment. So just remembering that we're here, we are this, we've got this, let's just live it, in the moment. So practice, cultivation, just being here. Really great to be here with all of you.
Thank you. And thank you all for your sharing. So how many of y'all like permaculture? Yeah. And what I love about permaculture is being lazy, right? Our concept is that we create systems that don't require high amounts of input, that just run on their own in the background. And that's the way that I treat my wellness practice. I prefer methodologies of intentional interdependence. And what that looks like is, instead of living into these tropes of self-reliance or self-care. I don't believe in a self. I embed wellness into the practice of my relationships. And what that looks like on a practical level is, for example, my mother has my chickens. My mama holds my chickens. And what that means is that if I want to get eggs, then I have to keep good relationship with my mama. It means that every single week I am going to my mama's house and checking in and making sure that she's good and also getting my grass-fed eggs. It means that instead of growing my own food, which I don't feel like it, I'm not doing it. I have several farms whose CSAs I participate in. And what that means is that I naturally, automatically eat locally and in season because my box is getting delivered or I'm going to pick up my share. And so I am allowing my farmers to care for me. I'm allowing my ranchers to care for me. I'm allowing my raw, grass-fed dairies, right, to care for me. And in caring for me, right, and in caring for them, I've created systems of food and wholeness that perpetuates community and actually builds a culture that creates wellness as something that is beyond my individual body and my individual practice and really fortifies an entire food system. And so by decentralizing these notions of self and embedding these practices into community and being intentionally dependent on others, this is how we create economy, and this is how we create the infrastructures for wellness to occur. I have a high energy dog. Shout out to Jasper. This dog saved my life because she demanded that she got her 2 walks a day. So every single day I was out there in the neighborhood walking my damn dog so that she didn't destroy my shoes. And I became an herbalist because of this dog. I had read in books about plants, but it was being with my dog outside every single day, twice a day, that I was forced to actually meet the plants. And so I learned to walk with my little shovel, right? And it's like, oh, there's a dock. Well, I'm just gonna harvest it. I learned to walk with my basket, right? And I had to meet my neighbors because we're just walking around the neighborhood. So I have to knock on the door and say, like, is that mullein? Can I harvest the mullein from your yard? And then they say yes. And what does it do? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm gonna share some medicine with you. You're okay with that? And in that way, I created my whole neighborhood as my apothecary. And every single person that I engaged with became an herbalist too. And that's just one of the linkages to build relationships so that each time, right about this time, I know which neighbor I'm going to visit because we got to get her mullein. And so for me, building these habits, these things that create wellness into the infrastructure of our community is the depth of a self-care practice because it helps us to remember that it's not just us. Participating with others, being with others, systematizing with others, being intentionally dependent and interdependent with other people. This is the site of wellness, and it's not just for me and my longevity and my whatever, right? It's about we, us, ours. And so for me, my daily practice is literally being in a relationship. My dog keeps me healthy. My neighbors keep me healthy. My mommy and my farmers, right? These are the things that keep me healthy. And even if I have a practice a protocol that I'm doing every single day. And I do, right? We have to like fortify ourselves so we could be in relationship. I love that because it's true. My end goal is a little different. I don't want to be the most beautiful, healthy, vibrant person by myself. That means that health also looks like eating raggedy food in community, because sometimes that's what it looks like, right? The mystery, it's like, your auntie loves her fried chicken. She really loves it. And I'm going to eat my auntie's fried chicken, right? It's not perfect, but that's for me what it takes to actually have a daily practice is in the day, how much love are you sharing and receiving? And that's the practice that matters the most to me.
I'm going to piggyback on that with 2 sentences. And one is that if everything that Asia just described is organically occurring, that would indicate that whatever personal practices we're doing are working. Because that's what our personal practices are, is a setup for the rest. Okay.
All right. Are you planning on being at karate at 12? Okay. Oh, you are too? Okay. Everybody wants to move. I could see it. Like, Asia's stretching over here. These guys are, I could see it. So I just have one more question, but we've already discussed it, but I think it's nice as a closure. And then we can take to the audience if people have some questions. And this is a tricky one. You guys can't slide. I'm going to hold you. In terms, and you guys probably talked about it, but in terms of what you do, and we all do a lot. I mean, there's Renaissance people up here, Renaissance people in the audience, I'm sure, too. But, what's that? He's a revolutionary.
Yeah, I'm a revolutionary.
Okay. They're revolutionaries, too. So, out of your practices, and like Asia was talking about being in community, right? Annie, you're talking about yoga, and everybody's having their say there. What do you think is one thing recently that helped you cope with challenges that is part of what you do or what you've found? Just with what's going on in the world, there's great growth, exponential growth, revolutionary growth, absolutely, I think. But there's also chaos, right? And that's come up a little bit. But if you guys want to speak on that, and you don't all have to speak, it's whoever would like to, okay? And then we'll go to some questions. I'll start if you want. Okay. So, and I hadn't even really thought about the answer to this question. I'm just winging it. I would say that my chickens, which are at my house, and my partner said to me, hey, the chickens are getting a little unruly because you had a contract with them, and this weekend you have not visited those chickens very much. And the rooster was kind of looking at me like, what's going on, Kim? I feel like if I just take the time, like you're saying, Asia, with being present with having a reason to see your mom, or being in community, being with the plants, knowing where your energy's at any given time, right? I just keep getting amazed by little things that somehow found their way into my life, like 12 chickens, which took months to get ready for them, that were a rescue mission. Annie knows about this. But those chickens were really grounding for me. And I never, I have nothing against chickens. I'm a vegetarian, but I do eat eggs. But my partner really was into the eggs. So then I was like, okay, we'll get chickens. But I didn't realize how grounding they were. And so again, like elementals, animals, people, our relationship made me take that time. And I remember when I got the rescue chickens, which were just hens, my partner and I were just sitting with the chickens, and I didn't realize how grounding they were, and I just kind of found myself sitting. And then my partner said, these chickens are really good for you. You seem like they're really grounding you. So just being in that moment, to see that something's trying to come into your life, possibly something, somebody said, or something that's getting gifted to you, and not always. It could be breakdown, right? Surrender, right? It doesn't always have to be abundance, but it always ends up being abundance if you look at it right. But that's the thing that I've found, that, that beauty, that spontaneousness of why a patient has to cancel, and then I get an emergency call, and then that person, it's like perfect. And I always want to honor that. Like, I'll tell the person, like, you know what? This whole cluster happened, and then this thing opened up for you, and I tried to get out of the way, that trying to get out of the way so that that divine energy can bring that wellness to me, and then I can share that too. So anyway, that's something that I found recently.
um, So I was a post activist, but now I'm post activist. So, and my post activism has been facilitated by stepping away from the yang and restoring myself, nourishing myself with yin, including sleep, including dream, including weight, including rest. And as I move back into a yang space that's integrated with the yin, right? Some of the deepest practices that I'm bringing with me is surrendering in the face of disaster. Yoga Nidra is one of my deepest practice. We started a yoga cooperative, the first in the nation for people of color, owned and operated, called Satya Yoga. And we get to train all of these young, dominant, stressed, tense activists in learning how to release. And what's really powerful, what's been really powerful in my Yoga Nidra work, and why I'm integrating it into my activisms these days, is that we don't have a concept of how much power exists when we let Jesus take the wheel. We think that we have to do it, push it, make it through. We think that it's all on us. And what Nidra offers us is that our job is to surrender enough of our doing so that the prana can do what the prana does, right? And prana is maybe just a metaphor for that part of God that exists in all of us and that has a will of its own. And so for me, some of the deepest revelations that I've been coming to is how much more I'm capable of when I stop doing. And just what that has to bear on our social movements is that as we try to move against, we end up, of course, recreating the thing that we're moving against. But there's this third option called no movement at all. And this is the source of the magic. This is the source of everything that we've been looking for. And so, in thinking about climate catastrophe and thinking about all of these Goliaths, it's not necessarily in being the David that we find our redemption. Sometimes it's as subtle as becoming the rock, or as becoming the mountain, or as becoming an understanding that though David and Goliath are in their constant interplay, there is a world of humans and non-human beings who are continuing to contain this experience of humanness that we have, and that we can be them too. And so in reconstructing activism, with these concepts third ways and different ways and not fighting against. I've just been sitting with the deep revelation of how much of the God source happens when we're not trying to force it to happen.
I really resonate with that aspect of not doing, and being a human being, not so much a human doing, right? So just resting into that quietness, that yin, that listening, that receptivity. We can't be listening if we're talking, right? Like, so having some silence, having some space. All the best jazz, it's got those great spaces in just the right spots. And music in general, yeah. And so that not doing, that just being in the moment, present moment, and bringing that present moment beingness into the relationship that we've all been talking about and relating, and including the more than human family. So all of nature, all beings of nature in that relationship, and showing up for that larger relationship, and then receiving the incredible gifts and joy of walking through a forest and feeling the connection of being with your family. These amazing cottonwood trees with us right now that we're all breathing with and exchanging life force with and celebrating life with. And so being able to just be in those moments and not worry about what we're doing, allow our doings to become beings in themselves, really. So that time in nature with the rest of nature, including human nature, and also the larger family that we humans sometimes can forget. And then we're living in a much more starved life experience, right? If we're disconnected not only from each other in the human world, but disconnected from remembering we are breathing with our tree family, like right now in this moment with these individual particular trees that are right next to us. So what an amazing heart-opening gift that we have moment to moment, being with each other, being with our family of tree beings, plant beings, exchanging that healing energy. And so in my daily kind of experience and practice, cultivation, relationship, that's really what's helped me is if I'm in an urban environment where I'm separated from the rest of nature, I'm even more fed by my human connections. And then that's just so important for me, for my healing, for my wellness, for my balance, for mirroring for me, like what my experience is. And then if I can go on a hike with some of my human community or practice some Qigong or martial arts or herbalism or eating good food or gardening with my human community, then we're celebrating with so much more of our family, right? And the rest of nature. So that larger nature connection. And if I need to go deeply into personal healing and assessment, then doing that alone for some solo time in nature as well is really important for me, to find my ground, find my center, my deepest and highest connections, and let go of the human definitions of who this one being might be perceiving themselves as, and open to that natural flow and the Tao that the rest of nature is just doing from moment to moment so effortlessly. Has been really important for me when I've had great difficulties. It's like going out into the rest of nature is super helpful.
Okay, I'm just going to continue on this theme of, I feel like less is more. I'm learning this a lot, and in the structure of motherhood, I think it's a really potent practice to keep in the front of my mind. Trying to like pack more into less. So just a couple ways that I've been doing that is like if I'm eating a meal, setting the intention of packing it with like the most nutrition possible, because maybe I'm not going to eat 5 things throughout the day. So having just like a really nutritionally dense meal, a really potent drop-in with my partner, a really beautiful, special moment with my child, special bath, and just slowing down, but keeping my moments more dense and like following with that less is more, and creating the space and the time for rest. Because this culture that we've lived in is like almost demonized resting. Oh, you're lazy. Oh, you don't do enough. You don't work hard enough. But there's so much work that lies in the resting. And I think for everybody, that's something we need to bring into our days to help. So,
Just to piggyback on what everyone has said is really for me the space between breath. So instead of rushing to breathe in and breathe out and think about what's next, it's what happens in this void space when we can linger and when we can connect to that space, whether it be through a breath practice or through just mindfully breathing and lingering just a little bit. I find this really beautiful in the Taoist standing practices, the standing Qigong, when it's really uncomfortable. But it applies and it changes the frequency of my whole body, my whole being, my whole relation to everything around me. Because when we touch that void space, we recognize that all movement, all intention, all change comes from stillness. And I think the more that we can cultivate that stillness through our vibrational capacity, which is mirrored in our breath, we start to have more synchronization and union and relationship and connection, and things are easier. Even like the cooking, it's like, oh, I got this, and this. Oh, that's a very nutrient-dense meal, and I'm going to enjoy, making this, because things can arise when we're not doing. So it's like that Lao Tzu quote. It's like, do nothing, leave nothing undone. It's like, what's the inspiration for that just being? And I think the more we reside there, the more we can become and embody that.
I love all the Taoism going on up here, the Wu ways. I'm down like the dude, Big Lebowski. Another Lao Tzu quote. In the Tao Te Ching, he said to know the masculine but remain in the feminine. Know the masculine but remain in the feminine. I think that prayer can remind us, bring us into the practice of remembering who we are and our doing not being separate from our being. And if we're rooted in our beingness, then the doing is just we be doing. And I think we're playing roles. We have these functions that are moving through us. Whether you resonate with like a greater purpose or a sacred mission or something like that, how that's kind of been co-opted into this over obsession with like accomplishment, achievement, getting to the end of the journey or something like that. We forget that we're playing our roles. We're playing a role. So when we remember we're playing these roles, we can be in the world and not so much of the world. And what moves us to move isn't just necessarily our busyness, but when we're really present, it's what we're tending and attentive to what moves us. what's primarily moving us at any given moment? Is it the dominant culture in the industry? Is it spirit and our ancestors and our communities? Is it a mix? And so bringing that quality of spaciousness, of beingness into our busyness, we are moving a lot. I'm one of the people who I would say fairly, as a fair assessment of myself, truly I feel like I tend to be out here doing the most. I'm doing a lot all the time, and it can get, I've been lost in that sauce. So the practice of I think this has been echoed in so many different ways, but, you know, can you be, I wrote this little poem once. It was a tree that gave this poem to a boy. No, the boy gave the poem to the tree, and the tree was like, that's a good poem. But the poem is, if I am the I am also the storm, and in the center of either, neither nor. Can you be in that presence in the midst of all of the sixth mass extinction, you know, and actually be a well of beloved wellness that can source through that and participate in that process in a way that is regenerative, because I don't know if y'all noticed, but we're tiptoeing through the Kali Yuga out here. It is going down. So I wish wellness to all of you and that journey together.
So to be honorable of Elza's presentation, she's going to be doing a karate presentation. Do you have a minute? And we'll see if there's a question directed for you. You don't know. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to some questions. We were running late. We have a question right there. Okay. Thank you, Elza. She's awesome, and she's going to go set up for her karate at the wellness area. Does anybody have a question? Oh, please, come. Yeah, it is. It's just down the little road there. There is a sign. It's a park. Yeah. So it really is there. We're sorry if you didn't find it. If you go over here by the vendor area where the food is, there is a street, right, that runs down to a park, and you can see the park, and the wellness area is over there. And the reason it was there, I think, was, I don't mean to be standing in front of these good folks, is just it's very quiet and healing over there. So there's practitioners as well as some demonstrations. So okay, well, thank you for the input. We certainly want you to know. Absolutely. So, yeah. And the info booth at the front also, those folks should know how to get you there as well. So I'm sorry if you've missed anything. Is there anybody that did have any questions for our awesome panel? You have one? Okay. Here, you can use the
mic. I have a question for either of the men. Either of the men, just because they're involved in what I consider to be alternative states of mind in deep places, because I've done this kind of work with John Milton and with psychedelics. So I was just wondering if you could share a personal experience from when you were in an alternative state that helped you with your own wellness or whatever.
Sure, I'll share one that I was thinking about this morning. I was in Hawaii, and I was at a Mike Love concert on this kava farm on Big Island, and I'd eaten some mushrooms, and he was singing a song about his parents, and my parents had a terrible Game of Thrones-esque divorce, like legendary. Um, and it fractured all of us kids in so many ways. And in this song with the mushrooms, I felt the love, the undying, like almost like ruthless love of my parents, and how that manifested the way that it did. And I forgave them, and I could feel my forgiveness giving them space to forgive each other and themselves. And 2 days later, I checked in with my mom, and I just was checking in. I was like, how's it going? My older sister was about to get married, so all of the family dramas are percolating, and it's just ridiculous. And she said, I don't know what came over me, but yesterday she was living in North Carolina at the time. My dad's in Virginia, about a 5-hour drive away. She called my dad, and she asked him if she could drive up to meet him, because she just wanted to, she wanted there to be some peace. She wanted there to be some healing for him and for herself. And he agreed, and they met. And I'm about to cry. And that's the power that we have to heal and to be well in relationship, that depth. And I am deeply grateful for my mushroom family to help me move into space where I can be and belong and do the healing work that I came here to do in a fractal, multidimensional space. Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, great question. Well, my personal journey with studying with John Milton and the Way of Nature process involves very regular, deep immersions in wild nature. And so part of what we do is we steward about 300 acres of private land up towards North Crestone Creek. So about 40 years ago, John invested a lot of his personal funds and any money he might have put into retirement and gifts from his mother and just all of this resource into protecting this land, and was shown when he arrived there with the idea, the mental idea and the heart idea of let's build an eco village and be a model for the world, like how, and this is in the 70s, because he wrote a book back in the 60s, the global implications of rising CO2 in the atmosphere. It's like, wow, is anybody going to listen to this? No. But so trying to build an eco village in the 70s and then coming to the land here in Crestone, where as many of us know, if you take a walk in nature around here, we encounter some pretty interesting relationships. There's a lot going on here in this natural area. And Dr. Kim, you spoke to this earlier in terms of the indigenous ancestors here that for many hundreds of years, probably thousands of years actually, have recognized this as a very sacred place and a very energized place. And part of that is the energy flow that's emanating from the earth herself, and the mountain and this vast water lake that we have under the valley here. So that energetic, as long as the water remains in balance, balanced quantity and beingness with the mountain, that natural yin-yang of this valley is very energized. That's part of the energy here. There's many other things going on. But John, when he went out to spend time with the land, realized there was so much going on with these stone structures and these ancient sites that there was no place you could move any stones to actually build any structures. So for 40 years, with the way of nature process, we have no buildings, which turns out to be quite a gift, because then, even our teepee up there has no walls on it. There's no cover on it. So when we're in teachings, the hummingbirds fly right in and bless us with their joyful energy, and the birds, all kind of birds come through, and the deer walk up and witness us, and we witness them, and so we're open for this exchange. So really, immersing in the way of nature experience every step of the way is very much with that nature connectivity, which brings me out of my normal human mind and definitions and starts to bring in those qualities of altered states of consciousness, you might call it, which can then be deepened through energy cultivation practices. So we work a lot with Tai Chi, Qigong, Non-Dual, Advaita Vedanta, Tantric lineages, Dzogchen, and other Tibetan lineages as well, and shamanic lineages as well, that John has gathered through his many years of showing up in relationship with many beings and with the earth. And so in these energy practices, as the energy practices cultivate through the body, it helps to remove contractions and blockages in the physical body, the emotional body, thought body. It helps quiet the mind, center one's being. And as these contractions release and we relax more, our heart just naturally opens. And for these altered states of consciousness, for me, there's the mental mind, there's also the heart mind and the gut mind and the whole integrated being that's experiencing that altered state of consciousness, right? And we're so lucky the way we're wired as human beings. We have all these multiple pathways that we can access, and through the wisdom of the plants and what their bodies hold and their wisdom. So what's really taken me on this journey through this deep nature immersion has also brought me to energy cultivation practices where, like the Tai Chi for Liberation form that we practice, which actually has no martial applications to it. It's a very rare form of Tai Chi that was lost in most circles for many, many years. But there's a few teachers that have brought it, carried it forward. And it works with connecting with the energies of all the directions and elements of nature. And so practicing these things, cultivating with this in nature, and dedicating my practice to the benefit of all beings. May this practice in this moment be for the benefit of all beings, allows me to let go of it. Because as has been said here today, it's not just about us, right? Not just about the one being, right? And so once you let go of it as being about some small self, so much opens up. And that's an altered state of consciousness in itself. And then you open to that universal heart of the cosmos, which, the foundation of this whole cosmos, near as I can tell, seems to be unconditional love. It's the only thing that can embrace everything in existence, right? Seems like any other concept I've come up against or any other reality, there's some sense of separation. So what a relief. We can all relax. Like, it's all based on unconditional universal love, right? So anything else is entertaining and, kind of fun to dance with, express, but we can relax. Like, that foundation is there. Okay, so, that's an altered state of consciousness, because consciousness is not just, this mental doing kind of thing, as we've all experienced. We feel it in our heart, we feel it in our gut, and we feel it in that connection of all of our experience. So yeah, that's part of my personal journey with connecting with the spirits of nature and other beings of nature in relationship, and giving back that giving, that gratitude, starting every day with gratitude. What can we give back to the rest of nature, in this flow, to keep the flow going, right? Great question.
Are there any other questions? Oh, Doug, you have a question. Right on.
I was going to ask this of Brad, but you kind of answered a lot of what I was going to ask, but maybe I'll ask this of Annie. Could you speak to the importance of working with an established lineage, something that has gone thousands of years before versus, just riding the opening of a new psychedelic wave that might take you somewhere someday and somewhere else the next?
Thank you. Here, Annie.
There's a cute little Sanskrit word for that. It's called parampara. Parampara, which means moving in a straight line. And moving in a straight line with these practices and lineages that go back thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years. One might argue that, but we're not there. We're in Kali Yuga, and it's different now, and we need to make up new shit. So I don't necessarily agree with that, and I'm way too lazy to reinvent the wheel. Perhaps it's knowing the essence of the wheel and making the wheel rounder, making it shine. And I'm going to say two answers to that, Doug. We don't need to recreate the wheel. And in order to bring these ancient practices into contemporary practice, it's essential that we understand the essence of the practice. So it might not look the same externally. We might not use the same words to pass it on to the next generation. But if we have truly and deeply understood the essence of that practice, we will be able to carry it on in the midst of Kali Yuga and adversity and everything else that's going on. But that's an essential piece of having that reference point of authenticity in the practice. And when we have that and it's established, we are able to carry it on. And the second thing I'll say to that is there are many of these ancient lineages. We have many of them right here in Crestone. And whichever lineage or spiritual practice it is, if it has been moving in a straight line and maintaining its authenticity, it will act as a pillar to support the other lineages and the other practices that are going on, and there will not be confusion or conflict. So that would indicate that, oh yeah, true lineages are not going to conflict with each other, and they're going to hold each other up. But if something has been corrupted or twisted or turned, the pillars are going to fall, and there's going to be crumbling, and it's usually not pretty, and then it's not sustainable.
I wanted to add to that a little bit, not that I'm a lineage holder per se, but I had, when I was a painter, I guess I'm still a painter, but I just haven't done much. I had this vision of painting these pillars, and it's actually over my bed. And they're standing there, there's 5, which is like the alive number, but I didn't do that consciously. And one of the things that I have been called to do to honor these traditions and honor these lineages and these pillars is this nonprofit called Sacred Unity. And it's taken many years to be ready for divine timing, but the goal is to do exactly what you're saying, Annie, is to help support those pillars of authenticity for people's lineages and practices that they can share with other people. And I think that's one of the beauties that we have here in Crestone that needs to be given energy and respect, and not that there isn't room for revolutionary creativity, but that we can find strength in them as long as they stay authentic and true. Then they are supporting each other, exactly like you said. So thank you for saying that as well. Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions from the panel for anybody? No, everybody's ready for lunch? Is that it? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone on our panel. Elza, who is off doing karate, so if you're interested to see her performance or demonstration at the wellness area, Brad, Annie, Laura, Asia, and Duffy. And I'm Kim. So thank you so much. And we will have some announcements for our upcoming events on this stage and others in just a minute.